Welcome to the Big Game Hunting Podcast, where we help hunters like you prepare for the big game hunting adventures you've always dreamed of. Now, here's your host, John McAdams.
Hello, John McAdams here, and you are listening to episode 142 of the Big Game Hunting Podcast. Today, I wanted to do an episode on a somewhat unusual and not very well-known hunting opportunity, free-range sambar deer hunting in Texas. And we have a special guest for this episode, Greg Wells. Like Josh Wilcox and Dan Rowland, who have shared some of their mountain lion and Alaska hunting adventures with us in past episodes, Greg is a longtime listener of the Big Game Hunting Podcast who contacted me with a cool hunting story to share with you guys. Specifically, Greg hit the jackpot and drew a really hard-to-get sambar deer hunt in Texas last year, and he's going to share the story of his hunt, share some of the lessons he learned along the way, and give a couple of pointers to those who are interested in going sambar deer hunting themselves at some point in the future. Now, Texas is very well known for being a destination where you can hunt all sorts of different species of exotic game. Some of those animals are found on high-fenced ranches in different parts of the state. In other cases, there are free-range hunting opportunities for those non-native exotic animals. That was the case with Cable Smith and his nilgai hunt in South Texas that we talked about in episode 79. Well, it's also the case with sambar deer. Yes, you can pay a good chunk of change to hunt them on a ranch in some parts of the state, or you can go the route that Greg did and apply to hunt free-range sambar deer on the Powderhorn Ranch on the Gulf Coast. Now, before we get started in this discussion on sambar deer hunting, I do want to remind you that there are application deadlines coming up in Wyoming, Idaho, and Arizona. This episode was released on 12 May 2021, and the Wyoming deadline for non-residents to apply for deer and pronghorn is 1 June. Next up after Wyoming is Idaho, and their application deadline for elk, deer, and pronghorn is on 5 June. After that is Arizona on 8 June with their deer and sheep application deadline. Should you be applying for those states and for those species? Well, I don't know. Not everyone can apply for every species in every state, and I certainly don't. And depending on where you live, what your goals are, and what your budgetary constraints are, it may or may not make sense for you to apply for those species in those states. And there's different strengths and weaknesses associated with each one of those species and each state. Well, that is why you should head over to GoHunt.com and sign up for their Insider program to get the information you need to craft a plan to fulfill your dream hunt out west. They provide the essential information necessary to make a realistic plan to draw the tags for the species you are most interested in so you can make the most of your limited time and money. The cost of my Insider membership has been money well spent, and I have saved way more money by not throwing it away on futile applications than I've spent on my Go Hunt membership. And of course, on top of that, there have been all of the tags that I have drawn over the years and the fantastic hunting opportunities that I have gotten that there's no way I would have known about if I would not have had that Insider membership. So go to GoHunt.com and sign up for an Insider membership today. Use promo code BigGameHunter when you do so for $50 in store credit at their online gear shop. Okay, now let's get back to it and talk sambar deer hunting with Greg Wells. All right, well, Greg, it is great having you on the show. Thanks a lot for joining us today.
No, thank you very much. I'm excited for the opportunity.
First off, the question I always like to start with people that are guests on the show that contacted me originally as a listener is, how did you first discover the Big Game Hunting Podcast?
Yeah, so I'm a bow hunter first, and I hunt a small property in Texas. I'm probably you could almost say a stereotypical small lease Texas hunter. We kind of check all the boxes associated with that or that may be assumed with that. Like, we commonly hunt over feeders. We, argue about the neighbor's property affecting our management practices and so on, so it's just kind of a way of life almost. And we spend as much time going out to the ranch or to the lease as we can. Obviously never as much as we would like. But anyhow, so traveling to and from the ranch, I always want something to listen to kind of get me in the mood and whatnot. So I was searching for a hunting podcast that would be appropriate to listen to while my sons, my oldest son, Hayden, and then this year my middle son, Hunter, they're starting to go to the ranch with me a lot and hunt a lot. and we wanted to make sure that, we found something good. I searched, I think it was on iTunes, for a hunting podcast, and yours was one of the first few that popped up. I tried a few others, but I really liked the kind of the nature of it. We, given the type of hunting that I do and whatnot, I don't know that I've ever seen myself as going to Africa. I'm not really a rifle guy, but I love your content so much that I've really gotten interested in it. And now some of those things are changing. I'm picking up my passion for rifles again, and now all of a sudden I'm interested in muzzleloaders, and and Africa maybe is something I should put on my radar for the future. So it just seemed to be a good fit for me.
Okay, well, awesome. Like I said, I always think that's just interesting to talk to people how they found it, because everyone seems to come to it from different directions, and don't worry either. Like you and I were talking about before we started recording here, we're both from the same area, just north of Houston up there, and that's where I grew up deer hunting out in East Texas. Sure. By Nacogdoches and all that stuff, and so.
Sure.
I don't do as much of that anymore just because I live in El Paso right now, and it's the situation's very different out here. But I'll be moving back there soon, and that sort of hunting for deer, whitetail deer, and feral hogs is going to be something I'm doing a lot more of in these next couple of years than it was in the past.
Welcome back. We're excited you're coming.
I'm excited to get back there. My family's still out there, my parents and, my wife's mom and all that stuff. And so it's going to be good to get back closer to them, especially with little kids like I got.
Sure.
Speaking of Texas, I remember hearing about how the Powderhorn Ranch was acquired by the state of Texas back in, it was around probably 2018, something like that. And I heard that they were turning it into a wildlife management area, and that eventually they were going to let people start hunting on it. Now, you're the first person I've ever talked to that's actually hunted there, though. So can you tell us a little bit about Powderhorn WMA, like, where it is and, what sort of stuff lives there, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so a lot of this information I got from the orientation when we were there, the pre-hunt orientation. I've processed this into my own thoughts, but I feel certain you'll probably get some, fact checker type emails correcting me. And if that's the case, please forward them to me, because I'd like to know where I was wrong.
All right.
But anyhow, it's in Port O'Connor, which is about halfway up the coast between Galveston and, say, Corpus. Funny quick story, if you don't mind. We pull into Port O'Connor, and I notice as we're driving around that everything says POC. So it's POC Bank, POC, convenience store, POC hardware store. And I open my mouth and I say, what is POC? And as soon as I said it, it dawned on me, it's Port O'Connor. Mm-hmm. And so then at the end of our trip, when it's all said and done, the last day, we stop at the convenience store for a, soda for the ride home or whatever. And I punish myself by buying an overpriced baseball cap that says POC on it.
Yeah.
And then I'm at home, the week later celebrating my son's birthday, and my dad is there, and he says, "What's POC?" And I go, "God, you're really dumb. You know that?" And then, of course, I spilled out the story of how I said the same thing and, whatever. But so anyway, back to Powderhorn. The project manager for that WMA is Dan something or other. I'm sorry, Dan, if you ever hear this. I don't remember your last name, but he gave us briefly, the Powderhorn was somehow or another connected to the King, or at least had some of the same players as the King Ranch. And so the attorney for the King Ranch, who was responsible for bringing a lot of those exotics in, also stocked the Powderhorn area. Now, whether or not it was owned by King or not, I'm not sure. I believe that guy's name was Mr. Kleberg, but somebody will have to fact check me there. It's approximately 17,000 acres or so. For this hunt, they divide the thing into compartments. So each group gets a compartment. I don't know how much those compartment boundaries change from, hunt to hunt. Ours ended up being roughly 1,000 acres. They are attempting to return it to all native grasslands and wildlife. But currently there still are, other exotics. So the Sambar, of course, are there. Axis are there. Javelina is listed as a game species for Calhoun County. We didn't see any, of course, and they didn't mention them. There was no discussion of them, but they are listed. There were lots of dove, lots of waterfowl, if you're into that thing, that sort of thing. Lots of hogs, of course. We had been told that at some point in the not too distant past, they had trapped and removed or maybe sold about 600 of these sambar. But they assured us that there were at least that many still remaining. The week that I was there, there were a lot of really nice sambar stags and hinds taken. But they really want the sambar gone. There's some native, aquatic vegetation that is only present in Calhoun County, where Port O'Connor is, and I think he said Matagorda County, which I believe is a neighboring county. And whatever this species of aquatic vegetation is, the sambar are just destroying it, and it's the only place, or those two counties are the only place that this vegetation grows. And so they really just want the deer gone. In fact, some of the different marshes that you find when you're driving around the ranch, they'll have like fenced off areas in the middle of the pond, and you can see a bunch of vegetation grown up. So presumably that's, it's that species that they were protecting. Let's see, they did warn us on the axis that not to wait for a big one. They said they're much fewer out there than the sandbar. They said if you see spots, you may want to consider pulling the trigger. Don't wait for a great big one. Though the week that I was there were a couple of nice ones taken. There was one guy in my group that shot a whitetail doe. His father, also in my group, shot a pig. But otherwise, I don't think any were taken out there, though we did see a lot of whitetail.
About how many guys were in your group when you were there?
Well, there were 4 in my group, and when you put in for the draw, you're putting in kind of as a group and not just as an individual. But the standby draw is really remarkable, and I'll get to that in a little bit, I guess. But they, even though you're putting it as an individual, they do tend to kind of group people together. I think there were 7 or 8 compartments maybe total, so 12 to 20 hunters maybe, depending on how many groups.
Okay.
So they do allow baiting. So you can put out corn or alfalfa pellets. They didn't want the raw alfalfa at the Powderhorn. And the hunting, of course, is daylight only, with sandbar and axis being exotics. In Texas, I believe that you can hunt Texas or exotics like hogs, so you could use spotlights or thermal equipment or whatever at night. But on the Powderhorn, of course, is daylight only. Safety or liability reasons, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you want to talk about the draw? How'd you get this tag?
Sure. Well, I'll admit to you, I don't know a whole lot about draws. The guys that I hunt with on my lease in DeWitt County, I affectionately refer to them as the Chris's. They're both named Chris, and one of the Chris's, and we've been friends, of course, with these guys now forever. I met them on TexasBowhunter.com, which I thought was just a goofy forum at first, but then you tend to get involved in something and just really become passionate about a certain group, and just great camaraderie and brotherhood and all the things that hunting is anyway. So one of the Chris's, long story short, told me a long time ago, hey, I'd like to start putting you in with our group for the draw hunts. And I said, okay, no problem. And he said, I usually spend about $20 a year on it is all. And I said, that's fine. And so I just gave him $20 a year for close to 10 years. And I never was consulted about what he put in for. I never cared to ask. I thought it was just, doing good for Texas Parks and Wildlife, not much to it. Well, last year we got drawn for an archery hunt for the chaparral, and I couldn't go because my youngest son, Hank, had been born. And so they all went and had a great time. And then we're moaning and groaning about how we would probably never get drawn for anything ever again. And then this year we got drawn for the gun deer either sex for the Powderhorn. And when they told me, I honestly, I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't know anything about it because, like I said, I wasn't really involved in anything. And so they, of course, called me a dummy, and I had to go Google everything, and I learned about the Powderhorn. And, of course, I Googled what the heck a sandbar was and then got really, really excited. And I remember telling my wife, oh, honey, we just won this thing. And I was talking about it like we won the lotto. And she had felt so terrible that I couldn't go the previous year to the chaparral that, bless her, she said, well, we're going to do anything we can to get you there no matter what. And It doesn't matter what the taxidermy costs if you kill one. It doesn't matter what the travel expenses are. I'll take off of work. We'll do anything we can. So she was absolutely the most supporting, wonderful angel that I already know her to be, and we got drawn. Now, I mentioned earlier the standby draw, I do know a little bit about, and it's truly remarkable, in my opinion. We show up to the Powderhorn on Tuesday morning, and there are trucks and trailers and side-by-sides and camouflage and guns everywhere. And there's 200 people there easily. Now, I don't know what the total number of drawn hunts were, but it was nowhere near that number. And so it's all these groups that are showing up to put their name in as a standby hunter. All of those names go on a card, grouped together by, who's in your hunting group. There were, I think, 114, 120 names maybe. And they were only going to pull, I think, 12, so like 3 groups. And all of these names were put together on these cards. They were read aloud to verify that, they've got everything correct, folded up, put into a bucket. Somebody swished their hand around, pulled out names one at a time, and called the names out. And then everybody else either cheered or groaned, packed up their stuff, and left. And I thought the odds are actually, based on our calculations, better doing a standby hunt if you can afford to go down there and, give up a week of work to maybe hunt or not, to go down there and get drawn 1 out of 100-something names versus 1 out of however many people put in for the draw through the regular system. But it was shocking to me how many people prepared to go down and try to hunt one of these, Sambar or just, hunt the Powderhorn.
That is very interesting. So you put in through the regular draw, you got drawn, and so you were guaranteed a spot to hunt there. So you went down there and you did. But then there was these, other certain number of spots that were available, like you said, on a random basis to other people, just on a show up basis.
Yeah, they show up and put their name in, and I don't believe it cost them anything to put their name in the bucket. Now, of course, once they got drawn, if they got drawn, then they went to the Powderhorn office and paid for their permit. We put in, I don't remember what our draw was for this particular hunt. It was $3 or $4. It wasn't much. And then the permit, I believe, was $80 once we got drawn. Mm-hmm. And so the standby hunters would have been the same, except that I don't think it cost them anything to put their name in the bucket. But their odds are much better. We got drawn with remarkable odds. And we're, like I said, freaking out like we'd won the lottery. And these guys show up. Now they're ready to hunt for sure. But then they got drawn with, 1 in 100 odds or something like that, and paid the same price we did. So, and some of the guys we talked to while waiting for that draw had done this, several times over the last couple of years. They put in for all the exotics and all the other ones. So if somebody's looking for a chance to go do it, if you can give up the week just in case you get drawn, I say go for it. I think the odds are pretty good. I'm considering trying it with my son for the youth hunt next year.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Okay, so we've talked about the Powderhorn WMA. We talked about how you got your tag. Now tell us a little bit about Sambar deer, then we'll talk about your hunt.
Sure. So like I said, I had to Google Sambar when I got drawn. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't this. They are a cervid species, so like whitetail or mule deer or elk. They drop their horns. They're similarly shaped to an elk or say a red deer. They're from India, southern China, Southeast Asia area originally, or native to. There was an intern there, Parks and Wildlife, like a wildlife biology intern that was there helping the staff this year. And he was fascinated by their, I don't know what you call it, but it's a gland by their tear duct. So like an orbital gland or something like that. They just have a very large, pronounced tear duct, but otherwise it looks a lot like an elk. The antlers on a Sambar are typically 3 tines on each side. They are similarly shaped to, say, an axis deer. Obviously much heavier mass, but a Sambar is to axis like elk is to whitetail, body size wise. Of the cervid species, I learned that only elk and moose are or can grow larger than the sandbar.
Yeah, I've never seen a sandbar in person, but I knew they were big. All right, or rather, I'd heard they were big like that. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Keep going.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I believe that there are only 2 populations in the U.S. of sandbar that are that you can hunt on a public hunt. The one is at the Powderhorn, that of course you hunt through the Parks and Wildlife, but it is ultimately public lands. There's another herd that is in or off the coast of Florida. I believe it's on an island somewhere, or maybe somewhere in Florida. Otherwise, there are some sandbar in, like, say, what you would call a day lease type of operation, where you would pay to go hunt a high fence thing. Those, I'm told, run 10 to 15,000. And when we learned that, we got even more excited about this opportunity that we had. Now, we were kind of speculating, and this is based on some conversations with the biologists at the Powderhorn, when they trapped and removed the 600 sandbar, in the last couple of years. Presumably, those are going to these private ranches and private owners. So it's feasible that $10,000 to $15,000 price tag could come down if the supply, needs are met. But who knows? This is not an opportunity that I think too many people are going to have for too long, because they're trying so hard to get rid of them at the Powderhorn. If you don't mind, one more thing about the sandbar, that they do have a very unusual, like a bark or a warning sound. So kind of like the roar of an axis or a red deer or an elk. Judd, tell me, what do you call when an elk bugles? They have that long scream, but then there's the 3 or 4 pattern, little staccato notes that they hit at the end. Is there a name for those?
I mean, there might be, and I know what you're talking about, but I don't know what the name is for it.
Well, whatever that name is, that's what this sounds like. It's just kind of a real shrill, short burst of a screech, and it'll scare you out of your skin if you don't see the animal when it goes off. But they're really loud, and it just sounds completely unnatural, certainly in Texas hunting lands.
Interesting.
So, so you asked about the hunt. The hunt is on, it was a middle of the week hunt. This is the gun deer either sex, and we are allowed 1 sandbar, male or female, 1 axis, male or female, and a combination of whitetail. I want to say it's 3 whitetail, buck and 2 does maybe, and then unlimited pigs. And when you read the tag, of course, you think it's just going to be a bloodbath. We're going to be killing everything in sight, but certainly not that way. But we drove down on Monday so that we could get set up. We had orientation Tuesday morning. They took my group to our compartment sometime around 2 p.m. On that Tuesday. We get to hunt until dark. We hunt all day Wednesday, and then we've got a half day on Thursday. We've got to be off the property by 10 or 11 a.m. on Thursday. So we go, me and my group, we look at our compartment. 2 of my guys decided two of my fellow hunters decided they wanted to sit in 2 stands that were pretty close together. The other hunter and I decided that we wanted to kind of cover some ground. We had been told that sandbar like to have their feet wet, and that for best odds, cover as much ground as possible. So we mapped out on our compartment where we thought it would be safe to move around, and everybody still be in safe distance from each other. One guy took the north section, and he wanted to hunt a bunch of wetlands that we'd seen on satellite imaging, and I wanted to hunt the kind of the south area while staying away from the 2 hunters in the stand that were further to the east. My plan, we escorted our 2 hunters out to the stands because, of course, baiting is legal. So we had a corn feeder on a side-by-side buggy. And so we corned their areas around their stands and then left them. And we were driving back to the entrance of our compartment. And right in the middle of the road, a sandbar stag is standing there, and he's 250 yards or so in front of us. So we hit the brakes. My friend Chris and I decided that I was the designated hitter on this one. I get out of the buggy, and I grab my shooting sticks, and I start walking towards him slowly, and he's just staring at us. Finally, I got to within 200 yards or so, get my shooting stick set up, lay down on the rifle, settle the crosshairs, try to control my breathing, and I can't get a good feel for his antlers, and I just don't know if this is the guy or not. And I'm having that, that thought of, come on, Wells, make a decision. You got to do something. And you're thinking, you don't pass on the first day what you wouldn't take on the last day. But at the same time, this is the first 20 minutes of our hunt. And anyway, I'm just about to touch off, or still debating maybe, and he turns his head and runs. And instantly I knew I should have pulled the trigger. He wasn't a monster, but he was certainly one that you would have been proud to have your hands on, So I've got that feeling of, oh gosh, what have I done? I've just lost all my chances. But anyhow, we go ahead, get back in the buggy, head over to the kind of our starting point, the gate to our compartment. We separate. My friend Chris gets in his truck he had a brilliant setup. It was like a big tripod stand set up in the back of his pickup truck. And he was going to use that for the high vantage point to kind of still hunt, work down the road a little ways, climb up in the tripod, sit for a little bit, work down the road, and just kind of move through and check some of the waterways that he had found that he wanted to look at. My plan was to use the buggy down the same road that we had just come back from towards my friends in the stands. I was going to work down a few hundred yards on foot, check whatever little areas and marshes I could find, trying to cover as much ground as possible, and then double back to the buggy, bring it up to whatever point I had stopped hiking, and then repeat on down to wherever we had set our safety boundaries. On my second or third leg of my kind of, leapfrog thing, buggy walk, I walked down to a spot. I found a big opening with some little cutouts that I wanted to go explore, but it was a big area, and I knew I'd be there for a while. So I thought, I'll use this as a marker. I'll go back and get the buggy. I bring the side-by-side back up to that point, get out, grab my backpack, grab my rifle. As I'm reaching for the shooting sticks, I look up and I see a big stag 85 yards maybe from me in the clearing where I had wanted to, go back and look, and he's just staring at me. So I have a decision. Do I go prone? Do I grab the sticks? Do I use the buggy for, a rest? That's what I ultimately decided. So I carefully pulled my rifle off my shoulder, dropped the bipod, lay it over the hood of the buggy, and it's terribly uncomfortable, and I just don't feel confident at all, even at only 80 yards. So I take my pack off slowly, and I'm remembering your episode with Ryan Kleckner, and I laid the rifle on the bag thinking that, well, that's what a sniper would do, So lay the rifle on the bag, settle the crosshairs, pull the trigger, felt great about the shot, and I saw him jump and kick like I'd seen 100 whitetail do in the past, knowing it was a good shot. He turned into the brush. Now, as big as they are, once they hit the brush, they disappear. They're gone. But I could see the wake of the brush of him moving through, and he only went about 15 yards in. There was some wild thrashing in the brush. I heard, something of a moan, but, not like, I guess, what I expected. And then silence. And then instantly my phone started blowing up with text messages. Who was that? Did you shoot? Greg, was that you? So, even on our 1,000 acres, you can hear that gun go off. So everybody wanted to know what's what. I sat for a few minutes, of course, hand shaking, and I'm so excited. This is the biggest animal I've ever seen, much less killed. I texted my wife. She thought I was kidding. She goes, already? A little early for that, right? Why are you gone for a week if you're going to go there and kill one in an hour, But it was only about 2 hours into the hunt after we had dropped everybody off and kind of everybody got serious and started going. So, it just truly an amazing experience.
I'm looking at the pictures that you emailed me of you with your Sambar, and for the listener, I'll post these up online, where you can see them too. That looked like some super thick brush that you're in with that Sambar.
Yeah, it really was. The terrain there, it's all coastal prairie and marshlands. It's really, really thick, and I'm not a botanist. I couldn't tell you what it is, but luckily for us, though, there's nothing too sharp. It's not thorns and pokey. It's not weesach or mesquite. We didn't see hardly any prickly pear, but my God, it is thick. It absolutely is thick.
And so he went into the brush, you said, 15, 20 yards, and that was it after you shot him?
20, right. And then, and so per protocol from the orientation, I sent a text message or a phone call to the staff, and they come out with a big 4x4 side-by-side. It's a Polaris Ranger, I think. And they go tearing off into the brush. They pulled him out for me, helped me, hook him up, and they winch him out, load him on the back of the thing, went back out to the road and unloaded him so that I could take pictures. And it was actually the Powderhorn staff that took my pictures that I sent you. And then, I rolled him over and started to gut him. I was so excited. I didn't search for the bullet, though I'd wanted to. I thought that would be a nice, keepsake. And then once he was gutted, they loaded him back up and took him to the camp for me. And I said, well, let me, kind of gather up my things. And they said, no, you can keep hunting. Do whatever you want. He'll be there waiting on you. And I say that to kind of brag on that staff. They were truly remarkable from front to back. They were, very helpful. They did really the bulk of the work, short of cleaning the animal for me. And then, of course, at the skinning rack, that's all on me too. But as far as the transporting and the dragging him out of the brush and, taking the pictures and all the knowledge, they were truly, truly fantastic.
Yeah, that's really cool. And especially with a big animal like that. I mean, that is literally the big heavy lifting that you got to do with it. You get a big elk or a moose down somewhere and the work just begins. So it's nice to have someone that shows up on command with a motorized vehicle to help you with the really back-breaking work.
Sure. And, I listen to guys on your podcast and other people telling stories about their elk hunts. And, it just seems, I guess you don't realize how tough a work that really is. For guys like me that have never done it, it really puts it into perspective when I'm trying to move this big guy's head around just to, get a good look at him and to feel that weight and that resistance. And then imagine myself in the Rockies with an elk that's probably a couple 100 pounds bigger. I really applaud you guys and the work you put into it. It's really it's really eye-opening how heavy they are and what a chore it is to deal with that kind of animal.
So that elk that I shot this past October, gosh, I had a friend there with me helping me, and it took us almost 2 hours to quarter him up and everything, and just get the knife work done there. And then it was about
Sure.
Another couple hours, getting him out, and we didn't have long to go, and there's two of us. We did it in 2 trips, but yeah, that's a half day's work, maybe more. In some cases, easy. And with a moose, that's a whole different ball game with that stuff, I imagine.
I'm not sure I could wrap my head around that.
I think you're right. Yeah. So what did you shoot that deer with?
It was a Remington 700, 30-06, and I chose, based on your recommendation, I chose the Corbon. It was a Corbon 180 grain TDPX, I believe, and they may market it as a DPX Hunter also. Your recommendation more specifically was for the Nosler Partition or TTSX by, I think that's Barnes, or something of that ilk. But I in this ammo shortage, I couldn't find them. I have friends who are hand loaders. They said, if you can find the ammo, we'll put them together for you. But I couldn't find them anywhere. And I happened to find Corbon available for, something close to reasonably priced. And so I went ahead and pulled the trigger on it. I took it to the range, having not shot my rifle in, many years. I took it to the range and kind of settled in, remembered how to shoot a gun, and found out that my rifle liked them just fine. So sighted in and mustered all the confidence in the world and said that was my bullet.
So you said at the beginning of the podcast you were mainly a bow hunter. Had you ever killed any big game with a rifle prior to this hunt?
I have killed deer with a rifle when I first started. My dad was a Marine and incredible rifleman, but just for whatever reason, not really a hunter. There were a few in our family had, but it's just not something I grew up with. I really didn't start hunting until I had a friend invite me when I was 20, 21 years old. So I've been, and I instantly fell in love with the sport, and I've been hunting hard ever since. But I probably put the rifle away after, 4 or 5 seasons of hunting and decided I wanted to bow hunt. And then I've been bow hunting, almost exclusively since then.
Okay. All right. Good deal. Was there anything else of note that happened on your hunt after you got that sandbar? Because I know you said you could shoot other things too.
Well, we could shoot other things. Because I was so lucky so early. I wanted to do whatever I could to support the other guys in my group. So I ended up getting to kind of quote unquote guide. One of the guys in my group on the last day of the hunt, and we did similar to what I did. We tried to piggyback. So we'd walk a little ways and search some areas that we had learned, and then we go back and get the buggy and then, roll up again and again and again. And sure enough, the exact same thing. We were able to get another sandbar stag that was another beauty, with a similar method. We walked around the corner and there he was, and able to put him down, and still within, just like my stag, they stand there and kind of look at you for a minute. They give you a chance to catch your breath and squeeze one off.
Now, I'm looking at the Texas Department of Parks and Wildlife website, for the powderhorn. I see for that gun deer either sex, they have hunts in October, December, and January. And was your hunt in January?
Yeah, we were in the middle of January. It was January 12th, 13th, and 14th, I believe.
Okay, good deal. And so in your group of 4, you said you got a sandbar. One of your buddies also got a sandbar. And did anything else in your group?
Well, all four of us got a sandbar.
Oh, nice.
Mine and the one that I got to go with, for that last hunt, we both got a stag. The Chris's each of my buddies, Chris got a hind. And then, one of my hunters got a white-tailed doe also. And then Alan, the gentleman that I was with for his stag, he shot a pig at some point too.
Okay, man, it sounds like
no shortage of wildlife.
Yeah, really, geez. Especially for a $3 application and an $80 permit to do this too.
Absolutely. The stag that I killed, certainly was the first one to come in for that hunt, and now I'm kind of thinking, including all of the hunters that were at the ranch that week or at the Powderhorn that week. I had the biggest for certainly for a while. There was another guy that got a stag that I think was longer main beams and had some just beautiful polished, like he'd really been rubbing the brush or whatever, polished white tips on his. I think I beat everybody out on mass, but yeah, there was just an incredible number of these animals taken. And the biologists even commented that, they kind of think of that January hunt more as a, clearing off some of the whitetail, try to take some of the males out of the equation for their ranch to get their wildlife grasses back up. And they were shocked at how many sandbar were taken that week. I don't think that's the norm.
Oh, interesting. So did they say if that October or the December hunt was better?
I don't remember which was which, but one was better than the other. I kind of think that sandbar are similar to axis in that they don't necessarily have a rut season, but rather, say, 2 females can go into rut at different times of the year based on when they were born rather than, something in the air, unlike whitetail or elk.
So how would you say that sandbar meat tastes like?
Oh, it's exceptional. For Texas hunters, it's one of the few things we don't argue too much about is axis. Axis is kind of the standard by which cervids are measured. But sandbar, in my opinion, is every bit as good as axis, if not better. If you're a fan of elk, this is close. It is a little tough if you try to prepare it in some form of a steak, back straps cut into steaks. It's going to be a little bit tough, but anything low and slow, whether smoking or slow cooker or something like that, it's just exceptional meat. If you have a good deer sausage recipe, it would be a great sandbar sausage recipe.
Okay. What sort of taxidermy did you get?
I got a full shoulder mount. I did a wall pedestal, and I was told that I need to be careful with that because if I do, then all of my mounts from now on will have to be a wall pedestal. So yeah, they really look good. And there was in the taxidermist that I used, of course, their showroom is just full of all kinds of critters, and there was one whitetail mount that really spoke to me. I really loved, how it looked. And so I asked the guy, can you do mine, more or less that pose? And he said, yeah, we got it. So it's, I'm sure it's going to turn out beautiful. It's a great taxidermist that I'm using.
Now, looking at the pictures, it looks like this Sambar is a 3x3 point. Is that right?
Yes. And I think that's really what they are. If you ever have one that has an extra tine, that would be very atypical.
Huh. Okay. All right. Well, good deal.
I really don't know how he compares to, other Sambar in other areas. It was, they told me that, that's about as good as they get, but I don't know what that means as far as, records or where he would fall in the books, but I don't worry too much about that sort of thing. I'd just like to know that I, certainly got one I can be proud of.
Well, it definitely looks like it. And he's I don't know anything about Sambar. Just about everything I've learned has been talking to you today, but he looks like a darn nice one. And it sounds like you had a heck of a hunt down there with your buddies.
Oh, it was just a wonderful time. And I'm so grateful to my friends, Chris, and then Alan for including me in this thing. And then, we all try to help each other as best we can, whether it be gear or whatever. And I'm blessed to have friends like that include me, blessed to have a wife that supports me and the kids to be proud of me. So I'm a very lucky guy.
All right. Well, good deal. Yeah. As we wrap things up today, is there any other closing thoughts you'd like to say, about Sambar hunting or anything like that, just in general?
I guess I would echo the advice that we were given. If anyone ever gets a chance to go hunt Sambar wherever, Powderhorn or anywhere, I would say make sure you find a way to cover as much ground as possible. A good set of shooting sticks and binoculars, and how I would imagine an African hunt to be, having not been on one, but cover ground, glass a lot. Make sure you can shoot off of sticks, or get creative, and just stay positive.
All right. Well, good deal. Well, Greg, it was great having you on the show today. Thanks so much for joining us.
John, I really enjoyed it. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Okay, so what did you think about that discussion? I don't know about you, but I thought that was a really cool hunting opportunity that I only learned about recently, and I think a lot of people probably still don't know about it. Click on the link in the show notes to visit the episode page on my website to see a photo of Greg and his Sambar deer, and you can get an idea of what they look like, what the terrain is that they live in, that sort of thing. Now, those Sambar deer hunts on the Powderhorn Ranch are a great opportunity, but that is a really tough hunt to draw. I've been putting in for it for myself in recent years without success. That said, though, Texas is not an expensive state to apply for hunts in, and if you get drawn, you can get a very high-quality hunting experience at a pretty low cost in many situations, and this Powderhorn Ranch hunt is a good example of that. Now, who knows? You might just hit the jackpot like Greg and his friends did. Or you can look into doing one of these hunts as a standby, like he mentioned. Now, in addition to putting in with just the regular Texas draw, there's also a thing called Big Time Texas Hunts that's sort of like the big tag raffles that a lot of the different states have. Among other things, you can buy raffle tickets for a Powderhorn Sambar deer hunt in this manner as well. Sambar deer are a big animal. At their biggest, they're bigger than a big bull elk, and they can approach the size of a moose. So they are a pretty massive creature. Now, especially when you consider the sort of really thick and dense habitat that they live in. Check out that photo of Greg with his deer to get an idea of what I'm talking about. You need to be appropriately armed when you're pursuing them. Now, the last thing that anybody wants is to hit the jackpot and draw one of these hard-to-get Sambar deer tags and then miss your shot, or even worse, wound and lose a Sambar deer. And that is an easy thing to do if you're not careful. Things worked out for Greg on this hunt, but he did struggle a bit initially getting started trying to get his rifle setup dialed in. Like we mentioned, he originally contacted me looking for ammo recommendations for this hunt, and he had a hard time finding suitable ammo with everything that's been going on in the world for the past year. Well, you now have access to a resource that did not exist when Greg first started preparing for this hunt, Hunting Guns 101. Sign up for Hunting Guns 101 and it will help you get properly outfitted for your dream hunt so you have the best odds of filling your tag. Regardless of whether you're hunting whitetail deer on the back 40, elk in the Rocky Mountains, or sambar deer on the Gulf Coast, I will show you how to determine what sort of performance you need from your hunting rifle for your particular hunting situation, and then how to select the rifle, scope, and ammunition best suited for that situation. So, the idea of all of this is so you can go afield on your dream hunt with confidence that you are using the absolute best tool for the job. Like many hunters who drew this particular sambar deer tag, Greg used a 30-06 on his hunt. It worked great for him, and he cleanly killed that sambar deer because he was using appropriate ammo for the situation. However, there are a lot of 30-06 ammo choices that will work great on whitetail deer, but are terrible for use on bigger game like elk, moose, and sambar deer. And if you use the wrong ammo, you stand a really good chance of wounding and losing one of those animals, especially one of the really big, tough ones. Well, there is an entire module of this course where I talk about ammo in detail and show you how to match your ammunition and specific bullet to the hunting situation so you don't end up using ammunition poorly suited for your hunt and wounding an animal unnecessarily. In addition to all of that, I will also show you where and how to find ammunition, even during shortages like now, as a free bonus when you invest in the Hunting Guns 101 online training course. Go to huntingguns101.com/order, ORDER, to learn more about the training and to sign up. Now, the fact that you are listening to this podcast means that you are serious about making your dreams come true. You can make your dream hunt turn into a reality, and I can help. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you back here next time on the Big Game Hunting Podcast.
This show may be over, but we have plenty more for you on our website. For more information on today's topic, as well as lots of other useful hunting resources, head over to thebiggamehuntingblog.com. We look forward to having you back for the next episode. But until then, happy hunting.
Wow, the mosquitoes are really bad this year. They're everywhere. So annoying. Banking can totally bite, but it doesn't have to. Like a good bug spray, Members Cooperative Credit Union can keep the annoying bites away. From accounts for the whole family to quick lending decisions and checking accounts that pay, we've got you covered. Members Cooperative Credit Union. Banking that doesn't bite. Membership required. Equal housing opportunity. Insured by NCUA.